Well, you know what they say. Another Monday, another Raw. Another Raw, another disappointment. Another disappointment, another hater video. Another hater video, another worst episode ever. Cucks. Let's get to it and let's review it. And around these pots, we review it like we do it, and we do it segment by segment. Now, the hater has had a very long day, and the hater will have 2 very arduous weeks until this year is finally over and I can focus on this channel and having some fun. But until then, we're still going to try to do a video a day up in this bitch. And today's video is obviously Monday Night Raw review. It was crap. Right? Let's get started with segment 1. Wade and Tessitore are in the crowd. I hate it, and it's weird. They show what happened at the pay-per-view, and they're hyping the Masked Man a little bit. Obviously, we're not going to find out who this guy is in another 5-6 weeks. But nevertheless, they want people to care. But how could anyone care, right? Like, the only possibility is it is Seth Rollins or it isn't Seth Rollins. If it isn't Seth Rollins, and I don't think it is, because if it were, he would just come in as Seth Rollins, right? It's just somebody else. Now, I ask you, does it matter if it's Austin Theory, like everyone seems to think? Does it matter? Likewise, does it matter if it's, I don't know, Xavier Woods? No, it doesn't matter. Does it matter if it's BJ Ray from LFG? No, it doesn't matter at all. It could literally be anybody. It could be Felipe Escalante making his Raw debut and nobody would care. It could be Mr. Iguana with his iguana puppet shoved up his ass. You know what I mean? And nobody would care. The problem is, the only thing that is intriguing is whether or not it's Seth Rollins, and we know axiomatically that it isn't. You know, at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter who it is to the fans. After this, they show everybody entering the arena. Rhea and Io, or Io, whatever the fuck her name is, they're now called Rio, right? Like the girl from AEW who sucks ass. They come out and they want the titles and revenge. What revenge? You just got the revenge yesterday or 2 days ago, dummy. You know what I'm saying? But they come out and they want the titles. That's really what's going on here. Alexa and Charlotte come out, and now they're full-fledged best friends. So they also want the titles. This leads to a match amongst these two teams, presumably to determine the number one contender to the women's tag team titles. After this, it's time for the John Cena tournament for the semifinals. It's LA Knight, versus Jey Uso. This match, all you need to know here is that Jey Uso is complete shit. He has 4 moves, and they're all boring. And they're moves that other people that are better than him do better than him. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, LA Knight is out there doing burning hammers and shit, doing like the springboard suplex thing he does, doing all the hits, right? But what happens is, none of that is enough. Jey Uso hits the spear, he hits the splash. This was an interesting finish, I will say, because normally Jey Uso matches are predicated upon whether or not he hits the splash. If he hits the splash, he wins. If he doesn't win, right? That's usually how it goes. And that's not just a Jey Uso thing. That's a top rope finisher guy type thing, right? It's like every Jeff Hardy match would end, every singles match, basically, would end with Jeff Hardy either hitting the Swanton and winning or going for it, missing, and then getting hit by the finisher of the opponent and losing, right? Same thing with Adrian Neville. Same thing with Mustafa Ali. Same thing with almost everybody in AEW, right? It's complete shit. But anyways, this time, Jey hits the spear, he hits the splash, and LA Knight just no-sells it and just like crucifix pins him, counters it into a pin. 1, 2, 3, that's it. After the match, Jey Uso is all angry, starts destroying like the area around the ring, including the tables. Whatever. It was an interesting finish, but I couldn't give a shit about this. You know, quite frankly, it doesn't matter which one of these guys wins. Obviously, Gunther's going to win at this point. I think that much is clear, right? After this, we go backstage and the women, Asuka and fucking Kairi, are arguing with Bayley, right? Asuka's like, if you had joined our match, we would have won. Okay, sure, whatever, right? Bayley says, whatever, I didn't, right? So now Bayley and Lyra are also like filled in terms of their schedules, and they're going to be part of this boring-ass women's tag team division like picture, you know what I mean? Which by the end of the night is going to involve like every tag team that they have in WWE. I think it's stupid, but I see where this is going, so it's got to be done. You might as well just get the ball rolling, right? Afterwards, the Judgment Cucks come out, and Dom comes out like a leader. Dom puts himself over. Basically, he says that Cena is the GOAT, but he beat the GOAT, so that means he's the best, like, Mysterio in the world, and he's the best luchador in the world, and he just puts himself over. That's really all that happens. Then Liv Morgan comes in separately from them for some reason. Even though when the people were coming into the arena, they already met up with her. It doesn't make any sense, but I guess he wants to introduce her as like a big deal. So she comes in, and now she's like pretty much cool with Judgment Day, right? Her and Finn earlier had like a moment, right, where they didn't like hug, but they seem to be on good terms, right? That's kind of like where this seems to be going. And also, her and Roxanne are not like fighting over Dominic. Roxanne is just like another member now, you know? I actually thought that was kind of nice because I'm tired of the same trope again and again, you know? But then again, it's nice, but look at what we're watching, motherfuckers. This feels like a Saturday Night Live parody of a wrestling promo because look at the people in the ring. They're all weird looking, they're all funny looking, and none of them feel like wrestlers. The combined weight of the 6 people in that ring was probably like 750 pounds. That's less than Big Show and Kane, you know what I mean? So there you have it. And this is a faction of 6 people. Cuts this. Anyways, that comes out of Dominic's mouth, all the shit that I said, and then more shit comes out, right? Basically, he says that the Judgment Day is now back, and that's it, right? That's really all that happened. This wasn't a segment worth happening. This was just Dominic saying Liv's back, and Liv coming out and saying, I'm back. Like, that's all that happened, you know? Nothing happened here. This was only here for the 3 people that gave a fuck and that didn't watch yesterday, right? Because that's like everything that we found out from this promo, we found out in the vignettes. So there was no point in this whatsoever. After this, we get a fun little segment, I enjoyed this one, of Natalya teaching wrestling to Maxine, right? They made it all cinematic, and I didn't think it was that bad. Basically, it just shows Maxine persevering and saying one more time, or like again, right? And Natalya's just beating the shit out of her, right? I mean, this is a good way to show that the character is improving, right? To show that the wrestler that has been treated like a jobber is now getting good. You know, it doesn't make any sense to have someone like, let's say, Cucky Rhodes be Stardust, then be Cucky Rhodes again, and be a jobber, and then eventually be Stardust again, and then be Cucky Rhodes again, and then tiptoe like a fucking retard talking about the cosmic key. Like, literally, he did this shit, right? Then he leaves the company, and then he comes back, and all of a sudden, he's a top guy. You know, like, in my personal opinion, Maxine has had, in this, like, what, maybe 2-minute segment, more character development than Cody Rhodes has had in his entire career. Right? Because Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre, all these people that were abject jobbers, they just leave, they come back with superpowers. It's like, what the fuck happened? Like, why is Drew McIntyre all of a sudden good? Why is Cucky Rhodes all of a sudden good? You know? None of this makes any sense. None of this shit has been explained in the slightest, cuckwads. So anyways, that's how that shit goes down. It is what it is, right? Basically, you know, hopefully they do like another 1 or 2 of these segments. And then, like, Maxine comes out. Hopefully, she also trains a little bit, so she's more athletic looking. And then she can do, like, the ankle lock and just make people tap out, right? Be a bit more vicious. I thought it was a good old-school type segment, right? Even though it was cinematic. Then we see Adam Pearce, who, if this were real life, he would have been fired years ago for being one of the worst people on TV in the history of TV in terms of their job performance. Like, imagine everyone you know, right? And think about, like, if they're good at their job, right? In real life, now think of the TV characters and ask yourself, is there anyone in the history of fiction that's more incompetent than Adam Pearce, but is presented as being competent, right? Like, Adam Pearce at this point is a laughingstock. This guy is fucking retarded. He goes and he asks some random ass referee who we've seen around, but nobody knows his name because these referees, like, they change them every couple of weeks. And he's like, hey, go figure out who the masked guy is. What? Why would the referee be tasked with this? How about give this job to, like, I don't know, Ludwig Kaiser, you know? Make something out of it. Or even El Grande Americano. Make something out of it. But instead, they're like, give it to the referee. It'd be better to give it to Tozawa. You know? Like, back in the Attitude Era, this would be like a task for, like, a Tajiri. You know what I mean? Someone like that. Someone like that would make it goofy and make it entertaining. Or like a Crash Holly type. You know, nowadays it's the job for some referee that nobody knows and nobody cares about. Anyways, that shit happened. Now it's time for AJ Lee, which is the name that I've given AJ Styles and Dragon Lee, right? That's what the fans wanted to call him. That's what we're going to call him around here. AJ Lee, the real AJ Lee. He owed me 100 favors. Anyways, it's them versus New Day, right? Kofi Kingston is in this match, so automatically the botch counter, the over-under is like 5.5 botches, right? I'm pretty sure we hit the over on this one, right? There's a part where Kofi counters the Operation Dragon. That's what Michael Cole tells us, or Tessitore, I guess, tells us. But it wasn't. It was that pretty cool move that Dragon Lee does, actually. You know, Dragon Lee has that, like, it's like a shoulder block kind of, but he, like, hits the person really hard. Kofi Kingston just counters it by a botch. It's unbelievable. It's almost like this guy doesn't even know what's going on. Kofi Kingston, that is. And he's a Hall of Famer. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, deservingly so. But his in-ring shit is like the worst it's ever been. Basically, Kofi's supposed to do anything. He just stands there and basically no sells it. Dragon Lee does it, and then Kofi Kingston just stands there, and then they try to like work it into the match. It was a disastrous botch. I fucking hated it, but this is what I've come to expect from the cuckster himself, Cucky Kingston. So anyways, that's not all, motherfucks. After this, they put Dragon Lee in the Tree of Woe. Xavier also botches something. I forget what it was. Then Kofi Kingston botches a dropkick to Dragon Lee on the Tree of Woe. There's like 3 botches in a row from New Day. It's unbelievable. It's like, it's almost crazy how Xavier Woods has a job. Like this guy, I mean, he's pretty good on the mic. He should have always just been a manager. He's definitely an overachiever because he doesn't have the in-ring talent, but he's pretty decent on the mic, and he's got decent levels of charisma, you know? Him and Big E, obviously, were the stars of New Day. Kofi Kingston was just a veteran they kept around, and Kofi Kingston got the most out of it. Good for him. I mean, if you really think about it, Kofi Kingston arguably, in my opinion, had a Hall of Fame career before the New Day. You know what I mean? Because he was a multiple-time mid-card jobber, you know? And he had, like, flashes of main event appeal, like at that Survivor Series. I think I went to that one back in the day. You know, when he, like, defeated Team Orton. That was pretty cool. He was a sole survivor. You know, he had flashes of that, so I think he would have been like a Hall of Fame type guy. And Kofi Kingston, in my personal opinion, has always been underrated on the mic, which is kind of weird, but I really do believe that, motherfucks. However, the New Day is where he really came into his own and kind of had, obviously, his push. So there you have it. Now all that shit's gone. Now nobody gives a fuck. The one thing I will say about this goddamn match was that there was a good finish, right? It was overly hyped, right? It was overly produced as a finish, but it was still clever. AJ Styles grabs Kofi in a vertical suplex and kind of like belly suplexes him onto the top rope, right? Kind of like on the side, right? Then Dragon Lee does a double foot stomp onto Kofi's like upper back / neck area. This launches Kofi Kingston, right? And AJ Styles catches him into the Styles Clash. Now, this was a very flashy looking move. It was very well done, and I will give props where props are due. Most people couldn't do this, right? Like, you need AJ Styles, number one, to have the coordination to grab this jobber called Kofi Kingston. And you do need Kofi Kingston, right? It's like, you can't do that with, like, someone that doesn't have some athleticism. And Kofi does. He is athletic. He's just not as athletic as he thinks he is, you know? Like, you could do it with, like, maybe a Grayson Waller, maybe a, you know, like a fucking Austin Theory, like that kind of wrestler, right? You couldn't do this. Maybe an Xavier Woods to a degree. You couldn't do this with like Gunther, right? You couldn't do this with Jey Uso. Like, can you imagine Jey Uso trying this? It would be 100% a botch. Like, it'd be like such an axiomatic botch that nobody would even try it. You know what I mean? But anyways, aside from like all the cruiserweight jobbers in the SmackDown Tag Team division, Kofi is one of the guys that could do this. But what I didn't like about this finish, even though the move was pretty cool, the Styles Clash is a great move in and of itself, is that it just felt contrived. Like, why would AJ Styles put him on the rope in order for the double drop kick or whatever, the double foot stomp to lead to the Styles Clash? Why not just pick him up and Styles Clash him? You know? He was right there. He was vulnerable. Or better yet, AJ was on the apron. Why not just do a phenomenal forearm? Furthermore, why doesn't AJ Styles always do a phenomenal forearm when he's on the apron? Like, AJ Styles should enter every tag match, every hot tag with a phenomenal forearm attempt, right? Why would he do anything else? His finisher comes from that position. But anyways, these are like small little pickings. For what it was, this was a decent tag match. But the problem was I couldn't get into it because given that New Day hasn't been on TV in about 4 months, I knew they had no chance to win. You know, even though AJ Lee, the tag team of AJ Styles and Dragon Lee, are a bullshit tag team that you know they're going to drop it probably to Judgment Day, like in a few weeks. That's definitely going to happen. You know what I mean? When Judgment Day gets all the titles, basically. But with that being said, it's like, it doesn't really make much of a difference because, like, you know, Like even if you know they're gonna drop it, they're not dropping it to fucking New Day, who hasn't been on TV. Like New Day, since like they turned on Big E, they've had like 3 matches. They've won 1, lost 2, and nobody's given a flying fuck about them. They're so useless at this point. You know, and again, this is not even a slight towards them because they've been together for like 11, 12 years, but nobody gives a shit. You know what I mean? It's over, motherfuckers. Everybody's going to get stale in that period of time unless they innovate, and they don't innovate. So there you have it. After this, obviously, AJ Lee win the match. Again, I'm talking about the tag team. The real AJ Lee was nowhere to be seen. Stephanie Vaquer is backstage, and she cuts a I Have Fire promo. She's been cutting this promo her entire career. You know, at this point, I'm starting to doubt whether learning English makes much sense for her, because even if she perfects English, I don't want to hear this promo ever again. She's going to keep trying it until she gets it perfectly. You know, and that might take some time, and it's going to be boring as flying fucks. So anyways, at this point, Liv Morgan comes out, and she towers over Stephanie Vaquer. I cannot emphasize like how small Stephanie Vaquer looked in front of Liv Morgan. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what the fuck? Did Liv Morgan take some growth hormone up in this bitch? You know what I mean? According to Google, right, Stephanie Vaquer's height is 5'4". Liv Morgan, I thought Liv Morgan was like 5'1" up in this bitch. She's 5'3", my ass. She must have been wearing the biggest heels of all time, because she was like 5 inches taller than this broad. So anyways, Liv Morgan has pretty much put herself in that position. I would say it's well-deserved, but the facts are the facts. Liv Morgan, since I believe last winter, or whenever the fuck it was that she turned on, not she turned, but she like got Dom to turn on Rhea Ripley, since then, like, it's just been nothing, motherfucks. She had that feud with Rhea Ripley, and then that was it. That's all she's done for like 2.5 years. Then she got injured, came back, got injured again. So who the fuck knows? Liv Morgan might get injured next week and be out for another 8 months. You know what I mean? Like, say what you want. I know people pretend that she's good, but Liv Morgan is a complete garbage wrestler. You know what I mean? Liv Morgan, she gets injured like 20% of the time she wrestles, she gets injured one way or another, right? Sometimes she gets injured for like 9 months, or she injures somebody else. All her moves look like shit. She has one move, right? She does like the Jersey codebreaker thing still kind of once in a while, but she has the Oblivion, which is not a bad move, but she botches it like 95% of the time. She's a wrestler with one move. Now I know what you're thinking. Hater, she'll do like a snapmare once in a while. Yeah, but she has no distinct moves that are hers, right? Even Gunther, who has 4 moves, 4 horrible moves, at the very least, there are moves that you can expect from him. You know, what can you expect from a Liv Morgan match? But anyways, that's neither here nor there. She comes out and does this. The Vision comes out. This is supposed to be like, I would say, the marquee promo of the night. There were like no faces on the card. CM Punk wasn't even there. They said that he wasn't cleared to compete, but in reality, it's like he's just not good enough to show up on Raw every week, right? At the bottom of the screen, as these fucking cocksuckers are coming out, you see a little graphic of Cody smiling like a fucking asshole, and it says, SmackDown this Friday, Cookie Rhodes. It's like, yeah, I fucking expect him to be there. You can't advertise this guy, right, as if it's something that we don't expect. They're like, tune into SmackDown, Cucky will be there. This would be like saying, tune into like the Lakers game, Luka Doncic and LeBron are going to be there. Yeah, I fucking know, motherfucks. Yeah, I expect LeBron to be there, unless he's injured. You know, if he's injured, at the very least, like, you know, he'll be sitting down like in front row wearing a fucking goofy ass Yogi Bear hat. Like, have you seen LeBron's fashion sense? By the way, there was a thing where he was like, yeah, he's like, people like me, like, we run fashion. It's like, then the next thing, it's like him dressed like fucking Yogi Bear holding a man purse, right? This guy's a complete retard, you know? And I'm a big LeBron guy. I've always been more of a LeBron guy than an MJ guy, but this guy is a fucking whack job, man. He is a Bama, as we say down where I grew up, you know what I mean? So anyways, it is what it is. So basically, as this shit goes down, it's now time to go back and to see the Vision. Heyman does his thing. He says, Lesnar, thank you. He says, Drew McIntyre, thank you. Then he starts talking about the 3 guys that are in the ring, putting them over, right? He explains that it'll be CM Punk versus Braun Breaker in January 5th, I believe it was, which is the 1-year anniversary of Raw on Netflix. Doesn't it fucking feel like it's been 10 years? But anyways, that's going to happen, right? Roman Reigns has wrestled, I think, 3 times since then, so it feels like about a year. So it's going to be Braun Breaker versus CM Punk on January 5th, which isn't that far, but given that it's next year, it feels far, doesn't it, right? It feels far, And that also means, of course, that the inevitable Seth Rollins return, costing Braun Breaker the title, will also happen on January 5th. That's not a spoiler. Oh, that's not a prediction. That's a spoiler. Shut the fuck up, fat fuck. Anyways, as Heyman was delivering the promo, the mic kept cutting out. It was annoying. After this, Braun Breaker cuts a promo. Now, I will be fair in this promo, right? Braun Breaker doesn't cut many promos, so this was a decent, like, first attempt type promo. But this was not a decent promo for someone that's been in the company for like 4 or 5 years, right? Let's say it like it is. The hater always says it like it is. Braun Breaker says he thought that pinning Punk was easy, right? But this entire time that he's talking, I couldn't help but think that this feels so small time, right? Doesn't it feel like Braun Breaker and CM Punk are feuding for the Intercontinental title? Doesn't it just feel that way, right? Even though this is the World Heavyweight like match, right? This is going to be presumably the main event or opener of Raw. Think about that for a second, right? It feels small time. It does not feel like a big time match. It feels as big as CM Punk versus Darby Allin felt, right? It feels small time. And part of this is CM Punk's fault because he is small time. But another part of it is the fact that, in my personal opinion, Braun Breaker's moment has passed. Then Braun Breaker starts getting angry and starts yelling in the microphone. This is a personal pet peeve of mine. There are a lot of wrestlers that are not good on the mic, but that get like a boost as pretending to be good on the mic because they scream, right? Another great example is Samoa Joe. Remember Samoa Joe? Samoa Joe is one of the worst promos in history, right? But people say, like, he's so charismatic just because he yells. He's always mad. Like, why is Samoa Joe angry? You know what I mean? Like, he's always, and no matter what happens, Samoa Joe is angry. He's like, I'm going to get you, Daniels. And it's like, dude, you've been terrorizing Daniels and AJ Styles for the last, like, 3 months. And you're still angry. But why are you angry? Like, none of this makes any sense. He only knows how to cut one promo. He's shit. You know? Braun Breaker, in my opinion, is heading towards that Samoa Joe thing. They were going for intense, and it was intense. There were moments where I'm like, shit, man, this guy is intense, you know? But I'll say it like it is. You know, the hater makes no concessions to anybody. Braun Breaker, quite frankly, isn't big enough to be this big deal. Like, part of the reason why this feels like an IC title feud is because Braun Breaker is shaped largely like Carlito, right? He's a Carlito, you know? He's not a Brock Lesnar. He's a Carlito, right? In order to make Braun Breaker feel like a big deal, he has to beat big deals. And CM Punk is not a big deal. He needs to beat like John Cena. He needs to beat Brock Lesnar. I don't know why they didn't have Braun Breaker win this tournament and beat John Cena, right? These are the people that he needs to beat to feel like a big deal. Beating Seth Rollins, beating CM Punk, beating anyone on Raw for that matter, will not make him a big deal. So in my personal opinion, I didn't like this promo. I thought that Braun Breaker came out very generic. I feel like he needs more identity. And furthermore, there was a part in the promo where he puts himself over. He says, you told me last year, CM Punk, that maybe one day I can cut a promo with the big dogs. Well, la-di-da. This is the promo, right? And it's like, yeah, this one didn't quite do it, to be honest. Like, it was not a great promo. I like him, right? But I gotta call it like I see it, motherfuckers. It's the same thing. Like, I saw this clip on, like, YouTube Shorts. It was Trick Williams pretending to talk on the cell phone. And then he was like, yo, man. And then he's like just bragging about himself on the phone to like somebody that wasn't there, right? And people are like, this man just oozes charisma. No, he fucking doesn't. You know, it's the same thing. Trick Williams and Braun Breaker have the same problem. They're clearly tryhards, right? They're not charismatic. And their promo style, they only have one, right? Trick Williams is like, yo, man, he's like always like chilled and like charismatic and fun, but it just doesn't fit him because you can tell he's like an intense guy. You know what I mean? Whereas, for example, someone like Javon Evans, right? Or like a Matt Riddle, right? You can tell they're like chill dudes, right? It comes off that way, right? But Trick Williams is like an intense guy, and they should lean into that or at least give him some other kind of promo. Same thing with Braun Breaker. This guy is over, right? But he's not massively over, and quite frankly, I don't think it's going to happen anymore, motherfucks. He might get over if they book him correctly, but it's now up to the booking. It's never going to be him getting over like with promos. So he has no reason to cut promos. As far as I'm concerned. Same thing with Trick Williams, right? This guy, he's playing off like the I'm a cool guy thing, but it just doesn't come off well. Like with Carmelo, for example, who's like his partner, it comes off much more fluidly, right? There's a reason why Carmelo was the star and Trick Williams was the lackey, right? You know, there's a reason for that. Now that reason doesn't matter anymore because Carmelo's probably on his way out. But then again, Finn Balor and JD McDonough still have jobs, so who the fuck knows? Carmelo could coast for another 10 years doing nothing like those guys. So whatever, it is what it is. Anyways, after this, we go backstage, and it's fucking. That's the end of the promo, by the way, right? Like he says, I'm gonna beat up Seth Rollins in a month, and he leaves. Nothing happens. Nobody interrupts. CM Punk. CM Punk ain't there, so whatever, right? Afterwards, we go backstage, and like Kathy Kelly or whatever the fuck her name is, one of those interviewer broads, is trying to talk to Jey Uso. Jey Uso's just mad at himself, and he's pouting like a little bitch. I fucking hate Jey Uso, man. As a character, he's one of the worst characters of all time. I can see him being like this in real life. I don't think he's that good of an actor. He's just a pouty bitch, man. He's just a pouty little bitch, you know? And honestly, this Uso tough guy thing, that's why I never bought into it. That's why I never bought into the Samoan tough guy act, right? The Rock, maybe. Roman Reigns, he looks like a serious guy, but I do think these are just a bunch of pussies. You know what I mean? Like all of them. Oh, Haku once tore a guy's asshole out and then used it to kill another guy. Okay, sure he did, bro. Sure he did. I don't buy that shit for a second. They're like, Haku would destroy Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar would destroy the entire, like, Isle of Samoa. Right? And that's not a slight against the Isle of Samoa or the Isle of Tonga. Brock Lesnar would destroy the Isle of everything. The Isle of Man, the Isle of Beast, the Isle of Australia. There is no one like Brock Lesnar, but neither here nor there. Basically, Jey Uso's being a pouty little bitch. And he's having this like, hey, leave me alone, man. Like he's having that attitude, like, man, leave me alone, man. And then like Kathy Kelly or whatever is asking him, hey, Jay, can you give me a moment? And he's like, nah, man, leave me alone, man. You know what I'm saying, man? Yeah, leave me alone, man. And then she's like, oh, but come on, Jay, it's me. Right? He's like, Jackie O. Her name's Jackie. He's like, he keeps calling her Jackie O. Like, that's fucking weird, man. There are people called Jackie O that are more famous than this broad. And this guy, like, he just knows. That's all he knows. That's the only pun he can come up with. He's like, oh, Jackie O, ha, ha, ha. Clever for the 3 people that get this shit reference. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Anyways, he tells her, like, look, man, you know, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. Oos, right? Maybe Roman Reigns was right. Maybe, like, the belts look better on him. Oh, shut the fuck up. Enough. Like, at this point, Zelina Vega should appear out of nowhere and treat him like Andrade, which is like, stop, yeah, what fucking man. Or maybe, like, have, like, Bram. Remember Bram from TNA, right? Where he came to Magnus, who is now Nick Aldis. And Nick Aldis was being, like, a little pouty bitch because he was like, oh, I'm just a champion, but he was like a coward. And Bram just comes and grabs him by the throat. They're supposed to be, like, best friends. And he's like, what the fuck's the matter with you? You know what I mean? Man up. This is not the Nick Aldis or whatever the fuck his name was. Yeah, I guess it was Nick Aldis. This is not the Nick Aldis that I know, or the Magnus that I know, right? Be a man, you know? Someone needs to rattle Jey Uso and be like, be a man. But the problem is, motherfucks, that this has already happened before. We are tired of seeing Jey Uso in yet another insecure Jey Uso run. Oh, I don't think I can beat Gunther. You can. Oh, I don't think I can. You can. Oh, I don't think I can. Then Gunther like destroys Jimmy. And then he's like, oh, I think I can, Uso. I think I can. And then all of a sudden that confidence goes away because he lost a match against LA Knight, right? And he didn't even get pinned last night. You know what I mean? It's not like this guy he's lost to LA Knight before. You know? He didn't lose like a big opportunity. He lost a match against Cena, who he eliminated last year. So he already has a win over Cena this year. So get the fuck out of here, you know? But he's being a little bitch. I have no interest in seeing where this goes. After this, we go back to the ring, and it's time for Gunther versus Solo. This was a long match. And this is one of those matches that I could see people pretending was good. But the problem was this. I don't give a flying fuck if Gunther is there against all 5 of the MFTs. Gunther is coming out on top. The MFTs are jobbers, motherfuckers. Solo Sikoa is a jobber. Nobody gives a flying fuck about Solo Sikoa. They did make him look strong, but for some reason, Solo Sikoa looked fatter today than usual. Oh, don't body shame him. Shut up. How about lose your titties before you go out on TV and try to entertain me? And that goes for you too, Gunther. You know what I'm saying? These 2 titty guys, right? These 2 fat asses come out there, right? They don't look like wrestlers at all. You know what I mean? Like if you put them like in the same general vicinity as Drew McIntyre, nobody would guess that Gunther is the guy that gets the biggest pushes. Everyone in the world who didn't know who these guys were would be like, well, obviously, the long-haired, handsome one with a great physique must be pushed more than the 2 ugly fat ones with shitty physiques, right? It's unbelievable to me. I don't understand the logic. Right? It's not like they have something over Drew McIntyre, right? It's not like they're better on the mic or they're better in the ring. They're better than Drew McIntyre at nothing, you know? And again, I'm not this big Drew McIntyre guy, but I recognize real. You know what I mean? Like you have like Jacob Fatu, you have all these jobbers, Solo Sikoa, they're like regular dudes. Like watch this match with Gunther. First of all, it's not believable at all that Solo Sikoa would have any chance against Gunther. Like Gunther, even though he's a little bit chubby, like he looks like he can kick your ass. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't look like he can kick your ass the same way that Drew McIntyre or, let's say, like a Booker T or a Batista could, but he does look imposing, right? Versus Solo Sikoa is just a regular fat dude. This is like the guy that hasn't gone to the gym in like 3 years and is going back now to get in shape. There's like 10 Solo Sikoas at every gym, right? And about 300 of them on January 2nd. You know, same thing with Jacob Fatu. It's just like regular dudes. You know, just because they talk, you know what I mean, doesn't mean that he's intimidating. Just because he wears grills and has balding, like red-colored dreadlocks, doesn't mean that he's intimidating. He's a regular dude. You know, it's like, you know, you ever watch those movies, those monster movies, like The Ring or some shit like that, and like the little girl comes out of the TV, and you're thinking to yourself, why is everyone afraid of this little bitch? You know what I mean? Like, if that girl came out of the TV in front of me, I would just fucking DDT her on the spot. And if she's still standing, maybe a couple of F5s, hater style, you know, like would do the job. And if she's still standing after that, I'd hit her with my signature move, the hate wide open, and that would be the end of that. You know what I mean? That'd be the end of that. People, I don't know why people are afraid of things they can beat up. You know? Like you see these movies where like the monster's like some little shit. You know, like The Conjuring. It's like some devil thing in a workshop. He's like 3'1", right? How about test Big Boot him right in the face, and if he's still standing, hit him with a fucking jackknife powerbomb. You know what I mean? What the hell is this shit? You know? Same thing, I feel the same way about Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. They're like regular dudes. They're regular dudes, man. Like, there's no world in which someone like Brock Lesnar would ever be intimidated by someone like Jacob Fatu. Because he knows he could eat him in 3 seconds, right? Like, when they had Lashley, right? They had Lashley, they still had Solo Sikoa. I'm like, in what world would Lashley look at Solo Sikoa and not think, hey, fat boy, I'll break you in half? That's exactly what he's thinking. But anyways, that's neither here nor there, mother cucks. Anyways, so after this, the match goes on. The finish was kind of nice, but also kind of stupid. Basically, Tala Tonga, who in my opinion is like 2-3 weeks maybe out of missing his opportunity. This guy could be something, but if nothing happens in the next 2-3 weeks, this has Omas written all over it. You know? So anyways, he comes out and he tries to distract Gunther. Right? One thing that happened was Solo pulled the turnbuckle padding off, and that's usually like a telltale sign that some shit's gonna go down with that, but nothing went down with it, which I thought was pretty fun, actually. Chekhov's turnbuckle, cucks. Anyways, so basically, Tala Tonga gets on the apron, Gunther pushes him down, he goes down there, gets big booted, right? Then Tala grabs him, right? Grabs his arms, puts him behind him, and Solo comes in to chop him, right? The referee's there, he's like, what the fuck are you doing? You're gonna get DQ'd, right? First of all, Tala Tonga is holding the fucking opponent, Gunther, right in front of the referee. So how is it that the referee doesn't just automatically disqualify Solo? But he doesn't. So that would have been better, in my opinion, as a finish, because what happened next is this. Basically, Solo charges towards Gunther. Gunther just kicks him. Then he low blows Tala. Then he throws fucking jobber-ass Solo into the ring. The referee, for some reason, is distracted by Tala, who had just gotten low blowed. Like, big fucking deal. So what, right? And then the two guys are in the ring. The two people in the match are in the ring. Gunther just low blows that motherfuck. You know what I mean? In the middle of the ring, but the referee's not there. And he does the world's shittiest powerbomb and pins him, right? So Gunther pretty much overcame the MFT single-handedly. You know? So Gunther is still better than Sami Zayn. At this point, like, Gunther should win the Royal Rumble. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. Like, he's probably, honestly, Gunther is like the best bet. You should have Gunther win the Royal Rumble and have him beat Cody. That's the only thing that makes sense. Nobody else in this company has been booked strong except for Cucky Rhodes. Literally everyone else is a jobber except for Cucky and maybe Gunther, especially if he beats Cena, right? That would cap off the year as like a great year. He retired Cena, quote unquote. He retired Goldberg, quote unquote. And now here he is. I don't like Gunther, but at this point, it's like I can't deny the fact that the company's into him, right? Another thing that I will say about Gunther, you know, and I understand this is turning into a rant of some sort, but I don't give a fuck, motherfucks. That's why you motherfucks are in here. You ain't in here just to hear the results. You can read that shit. You're here for the haters' brand of comedy. Cucks! Anyways, I will say this. Gunther, because he's so shit in the ring, every move that he does could just be the end of the match, right? This is not a testament to Gunther, but if this was done correctly, it'd be nice. So, for example, if you had a wrestler that had like 10 finishers, right? Any one of those finishers could justifiably win the match. But with Gunther, it's like he does a clothesline, the match could end, right? The match could end because today, the clothesline could be Gunther's finisher. Tomorrow, it could be the powerbomb. The next day, it's a sleeper hold. All moves, by the way, that you could find on WWE, or WWF, I should say, SmackDown, like the first PS1 game. You know, all those moves were in that fucking game. Unbelievable. But anyways, neither here nor there. The point is, Gunther does these moves and he pins someone, you're like, oh, this could be it. Right? Whereas, like, you know that if Jey Uso super kicks someone, it's almost never going to be a 3 count, right? You know that when Triple H does a spine buster, it's never going to be a 3 count. You know that when Booker T does the bookend, it's almost never going to be 3 count. But with Gunther, it's like he could do a chop and that could be the end of the match because that's how shit he is. Remember that match he had with Ciampa where like the match goes on for like 45 minutes and then in the end Gunther just chops him in the chest and pins him. Like that was the end of the match. I couldn't believe it. It was fucking retarded. That's when like I think I realized that this is all horseshit. They keep telling me Gunther's great. And I'm like, no, this guy sucks balls. But anyways, that shit went down. That's how it went down, cucks. After this, we go back to Adam Pearce, who's in the same spot he was in. The referee shows up, and he doesn't know dick. Thank you for nothing, cuck. After this, AJ Lee, not the woman, but the tag team, show up, and they want the War Raiders next week. The War Raiders are still employed? I automatically assume these guys were fired, given that we haven't seen them in about 6 months. But I will say this. I do like the direction of AJ Lee, the tag team, right? They're out there trying to fight, man. They're fighting champs. That's what you want to see. You want to see champs that put on an attraction match. AJ Styles at this point of his career is always going to be an attraction match, right? Like people are always going to be like, oh, cool, AJ Styles. Let's watch. Even me, like I actually watched the entirety of the AJ Lee match tonight against New Day, right? And it wasn't, trust me, it wasn't because of Kofi Kingston, Dragon Lee, or Xavier. It was because of AJ, So I'm looking forward to a degree to see AJ Lee versus the War Raiders. I'd also like to see AJ Lee, the female wrestler, against the War Raiders and have them just hit the fucking, whatever the fuck it was called, the death sentence effectively, on her. That'd be fun. Anyways, after this, we see Rey Mysterio getting interviewed by Kathy Kelly or whatever, right? And she's like, hey, maybe you want to be IC champion again. She just asked him because Dominic is the champion. All of a sudden, Logan Paul appears and talks shit. Logan Paul says, the title's coming with the Vision. This solidifies that Logan Paul is part of the Vision officially. And it looks like he's going to go after Rey Mysterio. And then he's going to try to get the IC title from Dominic, right? If this happens, it's going to happen in a specific way. But not anytime soon, because what's going to happen next, I think, became obvious in the next match. The next match and the main event, somehow, is the women's tag team number 1 contenders match. Right? Unbelievable. Like, the women's tag team titles aren't good enough to main event Raw, in my opinion, let alone a match to determine the number 1 contenders for this bullshit title. So anyways, but I will say one thing that is good about the tag team titles, in my opinion, the women's tag team titles, is that there's one of them, right? So this opens the doors for the titles to be defended in NXT, for the titles to be defended on Raw, on SmackDown, right? To have a team from NXT come up and maybe organically make it to the main roster, right? So you can have, like, for example, an NXT tag team win the titles, right? And then they go on Raw to defend it against, I don't know, the Kabuki Warriors or something. And then while they're on Raw, that's it, right? They're on Raw. That's how that goes. They lose the titles eventually and they just stay on Raw. That's a good way to bring someone up to the main roster, I think, with something like that. So I do appreciate that. There should just be one mid-card title for all 3 brands, one championship for all 3 brands. And imagine that. Imagine if, like, Cookie Rhodes is the champion, but, like, let's say Trick Williams, for the lack of argument, right? Let's say he's kicking ass, and he's like, I want a title shot, man. I'm not getting any opportunities. I'm stuck here in NXT. There's no NXT title anymore, let's say, right? I want a shot at Cookie, right? And then Cookie goes to, like, NXT, like, like April's Fools or whatever, right? And then he drops it. Like, unexpectedly, he drops it to Trick Williams. And Trick Williams then shows up the next Friday on SmackDown as the world champion, right? That's how you get someone made, right? And then Cody can enter into a storyline of who sucks more, him or Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens can make fun of him for losing to an NXT jobber. I don't know. I don't give a flying fuck. But anyways, the women's tag match starts, right? So obviously this is a match that's going to involve a lot of botches for reasons that I've said many, many times. The match starts. It's a long, prolonged match. To be honest, they are wrestling their hearts out in terms of, like, making this match feel like a big deal. Rhea goes for the Razor's Edge, botches it completely. She can't lift up Charlotte. Rhea Ripley is not that strong. I remember there was an interview where she was like, I think I can beat up 70% of men, which is fucking delusional. Like, delusional, motherfuckers. Like, maybe, like, she can beat up, like, 5% of men, right? The fat guy at the diner would bury her in 2 seconds, right? She can't even lift Charlotte in a Razor's Edge with Charlotte's help, right? If I had Charlotte, I would fucking throw her through the roof. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, that's not here nor there. The point is, she does it, she botches, right? After this, even though the match goes on for a fucking eternity, and it has makings of a good match, at least from the perspective of the viewers, who are chanting, this is awesome, the match then obviously gets ruined by the Kabuki Warriors, who come in to do some damage, right? Perfectly reasonable thing to do. The Kabuki Warriors are heels. They are the champions. So why wouldn't they do this? They come in there and they start doing double team moves, right? Here's where shit hits the fan. Kyrie tries a kick, misses completely. Kyrie cannot wrestle whatsoever. Like, it's 50-50 with this broad. It's 50-50. 50% of the time, she does the move and it looks like shit. The other 50%, she misses it completely and botches. Right? Then, immediately after this kick, Asuka goes for a kick. Guess what happens, motherfuckers? Asuka hits it perfectly. No, she doesn't. She also misses. Now, at this point, you might want to put the blame on the person taking the kicks. Maybe she's retarded. Doesn't matter. I don't care. It looked like shit. After this, Bayley and Lyra come in, and they start beating up the heels. Then Liv and Judgment Day, meaning the broads from Judgment Day, all three of them, come in. They beat anybody else, right? Doesn't anybody in this company, aside from Liv Morgan, want to be women's champion? It looks like every broad is going after the tag team titles. Then there's a moment. Raquel picks up the title and gives the other title to Roxanne Perez to celebrate with, right? And then Roxanne gives it to Liv. And then Liv gives it back. This is to signify that now Raquel and Roxanne are the new tag team. And that Liv Morgan is now focusing on the women's title, right? So what I suspect is going to happen is Judgment Day is going to beat AJ Lee. They're going to win the tag team titles. Dominic is going to stay IC champion, whatever, Mexico Grande Campeón, whatever the fuck it is, for a minute. And then Liv is going to win the women's title. And Roxanne and what's-her-face are going to win the women's tag team titles. They're going to have like 7 belts with them. However, none of those belts mean anything because nobody gives a fuck about any of them. At this point, just have Dominic beat CM Punk. That's actually like a compelling match. They can go back to like when CM Punk terrorized him as a kid, right? And now like Dominic can like blame everything on CM Punk or whatever, and then he can like go in there and whoop that ass. So with that being said, Cucks, this episode of Raw, I did enjoy it. I thought it was lame. Been very busy, so I don't know how this video turned out to be 42 minutes, but here we are, Cucks. That being said, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you motherfuckers tomorrow, which is going to be one of the busiest work days of my fucking life. So take care of yourselves, and go fuck your mothers. Cucks this!